Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. The life-changing power of the grateful heart. I feel like the choir just kind of gave this sermon, so maybe I should talk about something else? I don't know. Have you noticed that life isn't always sunshine? I remember as a kid, I was little, and there was a song, I beg your pardon, I never promised you a rose garden. Do you remember that song? And I was too young to understand metaphors, and I thought, well, if somebody promised me a rose garden and I didn't get one, I could see that I would probably be mad about that. But they never promised me one, so I guess it's okay. I didn't understand the metaphor, and that's really, life has never said it's all going to be easy. That's not the way for any of us, is it? And so I want to talk about gratitude in a couple of ways today. I'm going to talk about gratitude as a response. I want to talk about gratitude as a causative force. I want to talk about gratitude in the mystery and the paradox. How many of you feel like you're in the latter? You're in the mystery and the paradox, like, what's going on here? I know when I first began my recovery journey, I was told, trust the process. Trust the process. And then I got to New Thought, and they said, trust the process. Growth and transformation, it takes time. We got to, be diligent in our study and our practice. Just trust the process. But you don't understand, I want it now. I want transformation now, and I want it to look the way I want it, and at the time that I want it, with no disruption to anything. I just want to add good things to me, not taking away anything. So far, the universe has not responded to that request in that way. One of our friends here at Unity, they scour the internet for cute little funny things, which I sometimes use in my sermon joke, and here's the one that's today. Does the process know that we're trusting it? Do you ever feel that way? I'm trying to trust this process, but hello, anybody out there? It doesn't feel like this process is going the way I wanted it to go. So let's talk about gratitude as a response. When someone gives you a gift as a child, what does the mother or the father usually have to prompt the child to do? Just say thank you. Say thank you. I remember when I was a kid, we drew names on my mother's side of the family one time, and my aunt, who I love dearly, but I was probably 7 or 8, and they gave me a shirt. Wah, wah. Some of the other cousins were getting nice toys. We were at that weird age in between, and my mother saw me. I opened it up, looked at it, and I threw it aside and did this. She was mortified and so embarrassed that her child would not be grateful. But I hadn't yet learned, but I did have to apologize and thank my aunt for giving me that beautiful shirt. I'm sure I loved it very much. So when we receive a gift, it is natural for us to respond, thank you. And we think about life gifting us, and it's such a, in the meditation, I wanted us to be aware that every breath is a gift, and we usually take it for granted. But there are good things that come into our lives, health and good relationships, financial prosperity and well-being, all those good things, and it's easy to be grateful when life gifts us those things we want. Amen? You can probably tell I'm not going to linger much on this part of the sermon, because I bet you already have this down. And if not, there's a simple practice I encourage you to take up, a daily gratitude list. Just make a list 1 to 5. I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for them, I'm grateful for... And just begin to get in that practice of being grateful for the blessings that you're given. It's such a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful practice to respond to life, to respond to the universe, to respond to spirit, to God. That's the biggest word I know. That's why I use that word. With gratefulness. But you know what it does to you? Does anybody know what gratitude does to you? It changes your consciousness. And this leads to my second point. Gratitude is not just a response, it's a cause. That if I can find a way to get in touch with gratitude, because it places me on a little bit higher vibration of the energies of life. And I'm no longer vibrating down here with my problems and my pain. I'm beginning to vibrate up here with this feeling of good and gratitude and blessing. And so my mind begins to get tuned up a little bit. The way I'm seeing things changes a little bit. You know, none of us is actually seeing objective reality ever. Did you know that? If you didn't, this is going to be a tough sermon for you. We think we're seeing the world the way it is, and we're not. We're seeing the world the way we are. And so I don't have the facts and figures on this, but there are so many bits of information that are flowing through our central nervous system, and we're not picking up all of them. We're just getting millions and millions of them. But our conscious mind and our unconscious mind, they filtered them. We're seeing a tiny fraction of what's really there. And that's normal. That's the way we're designed. That's how we're able to just drive down the street. Because if you were having to see everything when you're driving down the street, you would end up in the ditch. So our brain has learned to select, look for oncoming traffic, look for pedestrians, look for stop signs and traffic signals. We're ignoring a whole bunch all the time. And so whatever your vibration is, wherever your frequency match is, you're going to be seeing that. And so if your vibration is at problem, pain, limitation, lack, scarcity, guess what? You're going to be seeing it. What's that thing Henry Ford said, that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And this is a basic teaching in New Thought, of which unity is a part, is that we are co-creating reality with Spirit all the time. That our thoughts are causing us to be in alignment with certain ways of being, and we will recognize that we see what we look for. But not only do we see what we look for, we are co-creating, and there is an energy of manifestation that begins to happen with us. That we will tap into that universal law of cause and effect. And you can keep putting misery, gloom, despair, and agony on me. Anybody other Hee-Haw fans in the room today? Do y'all remember Hee-Haw? I know I'm dating myself. They used to have this song that these guys sang that, whoa, just misery, just being wallowing in it. How many of you have wallowed once or twice in your life? Oh, a few honest people. Where I'm just so down, I'm so in it that I'm just going to be here in it. Wallow, wallow, wallow. And if that's where we're tuned, then not only is that our experience and that's what we're seeing, but that's what we're placing into the law of cause and effect. Life is hard. The universe says yes. There's not enough here. The universe says yes. Because we live in a reciprocal universe and it always says yes. And so if you wish to shift your experience, I encourage you to tap into the life-changing power of a grateful heart. To find a way to get in, to just move your consciousness a little bit higher. And if all you can be grateful for today is that next breath, start there. And bring the fullness of your gratitude to, there it is. That breath that I need to stay alive in this body, because one day it will be gone. You will have breathed your last breath in this body, and that will be the end here on this plane. It's not forever, but while you're here, if you can wrap some gratitude into that breath, it might just take you just high enough to then see the next thing that's good. And as we begin to tune our hearts in this grateful way, we welcome a different reality. Any objections so far? Because I'm about to finish this part up too. I asked her permission. Reverend Shirley said I could tell you this story. Last week, we were at our leadership retreat last weekend. and the board and the ministers, and our facilitator, who was my beloved teacher of many years from the senior minister at CSL Dallas, Petra Weldis. And she had us go around. She didn't know all of this, even though she was working with us last year. She said, tell me who you are, what your function is on this team, and then what your hope is for Unity of Houston. And so people were speaking. It was really lovely. Just had this sense of, here's what I hope is going to happen with Unity of Houston. And we get to Shirley, and Shirley is a thinker. And she said, I'm listening. It's like I can't tell if people are just saying what they want or hope. What's the difference between hope and want? And Petra said something like, well, I chose the word hope because it's a little bit more expansive. That I know that if we just say, what do you want? Well, that's just kind of our personal idea of what the things that we think should happen. And Shirley nodded, and she said, well, I hope I get what I want. Yeah, me too. That's what I want. That's what I hope. I want to get what I want because I think I've got it all figured out, right? 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1, beginning with, I'm sorry, that's not right. Yeah, chapter 5, beginning with verse 16. Rejoice always. Pray continually. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you. Those are some short verses. Verse 16, rejoice always. Verse 17, pray continually. Verse 18, give thanks in all circumstances. I don't want to give thanks in these circumstances, whatever that might be for you. Have you ever felt, do you have an inner rebel? Anybody? It's like, no, can't make me. It took me a long time. I grew up hearing those verses, and it took me a long time to say that it says, give thanks in all circumstances, not for all circumstances. Pointing us to this idea that it may not be what I wanted, but if I can maintain this prayerful, joyful, this sense of expectancy and gratitude in everything, the will of God. Let me break this down for you metaphysically. It doesn't mean God's got a rule book that you're supposed to follow, and if you do, then you're in the will of God. No, it means get in the flow of the natural energies of transformation and becoming. Get in that energy. That's what the will of God means, is to be moving with life in the right way for you that is beneficial to all. Get in that. And how do we do it? Rejoice always. Pray continually. Seek that connection with higher power and giving thanks in all circumstances. I know you don't want to. I don't either. But this is the path. This is the way of going forward. Now, you all who have heard me speak before, you know, I make a lot of room for our human experience. There is a time of grief, and it's hard for me to rejoice always when I'm in deep grief, and that's okay. There are times when fear is so present that it's hard to get in touch with these principles, and that's okay. But the principles are still here, still waiting, still available, the moment that we can begin to move in that direction. There's a story in the book of Matthew where Jesus gets in the boat with his disciples, and they start crossing the Sea of Galilee, and a great storm comes up. And he had fallen asleep. Some leader, that is, fallen asleep just when we need him most, and they're just terrified. They think something bad's going to happen. They shake him awake, said, "What, don't you even love us? Don't you even care? We're going to die here." And Jesus walks up to the boat, and he just goes, "Peace, be still." And the storm abated. There's deep metaphysics in this story. I don't know if this happened that way. A lot of the great stories, the Native Americans have a tradition of saying, I don't know if any of this happened, but I know it's all true. What this is pointing us to is that there is the Christ consciousness in all of us that knows we're fine, that knows peace is still here, but sometimes it's sleeping. And where is our consciousness? With the wind, with the waves, with the rain. And so when we're out here in the circumstances, in the conditions of life, and we're not able to access that Christ consciousness, then all the Christ mind is it just knows that we're one with God. That's what it means. The Christ mind just means that we are one with this infinite power. We're one with the power behind the wind and the rain. We're one with all of it. And so the Christ arises in us and says, "Peace, be still." Now, according to the story, the rain and the wind stopped. But have you ever had the experience when you access your faith in the middle of something big and bad and hard, and nothing out here changes, but something in here settles? Have you ever had that experience? It's a real experience. That you are invited into, no matter what's going on in your family, no matter what's going on in your job and your finances, in the political system of the United States of America, no matter what is going on, that you have within you the power to rise up and say, "Peace, be still." And find your center. Find the place where you have never been lost, you have never been overboard, you have never been in any danger. There is a part of you that has never known harm and never will. Find that Christ mind and begin to speak peace to whatever this turbulence is that you're going through. And there's another story. This is from the Gospel of John. They brought to Jesus a man who had been blind since birth, and the disciples asked him, "Who sinned, his mom or his dad? Who caused this bad thing to happen?" One of the issues we get into sometimes in New Thought and metaphysics is like we understand that thought is consciousness and cause, and then bad things happen. It's like, well, what are you thinking to make that? Mostly we do it to ourselves now. We're too polite to do it to each other. Let's see what Jesus had to say in response to this question. This comes from the book of John, chapter 9. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." In the King James, it says, "that the glory of God be made manifest in his life." I know you don't like it, and I don't either. But in every difficulty you face, in every thing that is coming against you, it's not, I hope I get what I want, and when we don't, when here it is, there is an invitation for us to see the work of God in us in this situation. Every time. Every single time. There is an invitation for you to rise a little higher in consciousness. And it may well be that when you rise in consciousness, you are given the wisdom, the intuitive knowing of how to step into and handle that situation and turn it completely around and fix everything about it. And you might not. But you will be different. You will be different in relationship to whatever this condition is. And it will no longer mean for you that you're sinning, that you're doing it wrong, all of these things. None of that. You can be in a different relationship with that fact of reality, and none of the fact of reality touches the truth of who you are. Can you feel me? That this power, this possibility of spiritual transformation, wholeness, and healing is available in every problem you face. Last week I talked about Christa Tippet, and we did a workshop after the service, and a lot of folks are really struggling with the results of the election. And if that's not you, then great. But if it is you, we're trying to find some beautiful spiritual practice and principle to get around that. And what she says, this practice of the yes and, where we were practicing in small circles, we get to say what's going on in our lives from a human perspective. This is what's happening. This is what I'm feeling. That's the yes, that's true. Now find the and. And what Christa told us is that and is the creative, generative energy of life that is possible here too. And begin to speak to that and there's more here than I have currently made in this story. And I saw people just beginning to shift a little bit higher as they're finding their yes and their and. And I made everybody else be the kind of nags for them too. And it's like they would tell their story and then they were to go, and. I heard one group was getting really, very loud about that. And, find your and, come on, where's your and? Find the and. Find it. Oprah says this. It's not quite scripture, but it's close for me. She said, I'm so grateful for my many years living in poverty. What? I'm so grateful for my many years living in poverty because it makes the experience of creating success and building success that much more rewarding. She might know something about that. Whatever the conditions that are so difficult and painful and you feel stuck, when you begin to get into the gratitude of the generative capacity of spirit that is present in all situations, begin to call something higher in you, you will begin to see and experience life differently. And still, sometimes it doesn't go the way I want. I did a wedding last night. It was really fun. It's a couple. They're quite a bit younger than me, but a little older than most first-time brides and grooms. And I met them here, and they invited me to do the wedding. And it was so different from any that I've ever been involved in. I've made it no secret that I prefer memorial services to weddings. True. Because weddings are so full of expectations. The happily ever after story that's going to happen. Whew. Which I won't even go there. Well, in their wedding, they had me read this statement that they'd created about the way they came together, their love story. They had both had some tough relationships and tough experiences, and they'd kind of decided to do their own inner work, each individually and differently. And they had both come to a place of real wholeness around being single. And they just kind of accepted the fact that having a primary romantic relationship may not be in the cards, and they were okay with that. And then one day at the dog park, their dogs met. And they had created this wedding that was so goofy and unlike any I'd ever seen. They didn't have a best man or a bridesmaid. They had their dogs in tuxedos at the wedding. Just fun and goofy, and I'm standing there with the groom. We're about to have the bride come out, and then waitstaff comes out and hands out shot glasses to everybody seated there. And I was like, "Oh, are we doing shots?" And he was like, "Yeah." There were a lot of recovery people there, so some were non-alcoholic. And I turned to the groom and I said, "So when are they supposed to do these shots?" And he said, "We haven't thought that far." And so I said, "How about after the prayer?" Perfect. So the bride came in with her dog, the groom was there with his dog, the dogs got a little tangled, we got that settled, and then I said, "Let us pray." And we prayed, and then I said, "Shoot, everybody," and everybody did their shot. And they had both written their own vows, and they were so real and so deep, seeing each other so clearly, stepping into love so purely and beautiful. And there were maybe 40 guests there, and they knew these people really well. They loved all of these unusual things that this couple had chosen. In their little preamble to their love story, they used the phrase that we lift each other up, and they asked me to sing "You Raise Me Up," which I've never thought of as a wedding song, but string quartet, and I gave it all I had. And people were so moved by their celebration of love. It was my favorite wedding I've ever done. If I did yours, I'm sorry. I just forgot. I'm sure that yours was better, but right now I'm remembering this one was a great one. We don't ask how many marriages or weddings you've had when you come to Unity, but it's not unusual nowadays that people have had a couple of passes down this path. There's a song by Casting Crowns. Let me just say, a few years ago, I was in a tough relationship. It's not turning out. This is the area that I don't have mastery in terms of spiritual life, but I'm still open. But I knew this relationship wasn't going to work and I was on a walk, listening to this album by Casting Crowns, and this song came on, Broken Together, and I just wept. And I just want to share with you some of the lyrics. What do you think when you look at me? I know we're not the fairy tale you dreamed we'd be. You wore the veil, you walked the aisle, you took my hand, and we dove into a mystery. How I wish we could go back to simpler times before our scars and all our secrets were in the light. Now on this hallowed ground, we've drawn the battle lines. Will we make it through the night? It's going to take much more than promises this time. Only God can change our minds. Maybe you and I were never meant to be complete. Could we just be broken together? If you can bring your shattered dreams and I'll bring mine, could healing still be spoken and save us? The only way we'll last forever is broken together. We dove into a mystery. How many times do we commit ourselves to something and it doesn't turn out like what we wanted it to be? And we are left brokenhearted in the aftermath, in the mess of it. How many times? I really hesitated whether I could even use this idea of brokenness in a unity church because it is so antithetical to our understanding of fundamental wholeness that underlies all that we are. But in our humanness, we will experience that sense of being broken. We will experience where our dreams have just blown up and it didn't turn out the way we wanted. But the song points us to something. That if we can speak the truth where we are, then maybe something else can happen. I remember I had such a vision of what I was going to do as senior minister of Unity of Houston. We were going to have thousands of people here every Sunday. The money would be flowing. We would be doing all these great new things. And then, 9 days before Reverend Howard retired, we got hit with Hurricane Harvey, COVID, all the things that we've dealt with. And it's been a real journey for me as your senior minister because I felt responsible. I felt I had let people down. I felt like I had failed visibly, publicly. I had to go on a real journey around it. I'm happy to say I'm on the other side of that. There was a time, for the first few years I was senior minister, I'd walk in that back door and I would see how many empty seats there were in here and it would change the way I felt about it. That doesn't happen anymore. Do you know what I see when I come around that corner? I see you. I don't see the empty seats. I see the people who are here, tapping into these principles, being a part of this community. And I think we're growing. We've got some indicators that things are good are happening here. But it wasn't about me getting what I wanted, which I know a lot of you want too. You want us to be thriving and, all of that. But I was so broken around it. And guess what? That was when I started telling the truth with the board. It's like, I just don't know how to do this. I'm burned out I was using everything I had to try to make something happen. And so I just began to tell the truth, show up, and something shifted. It's all different now. For me, it's all different. I wasn't even going to tell you that, but I guess we're telling the truth today, aren't we? Okay. I have a tattoo right here that I've shared. I actually unrolled my sleeve and showed it to you once before. It's from 2 Corinthians 12:9. Paul had gotten himself something. He called it a thorn in the flesh, this thing that was just so painful and so difficult. He just asked 3 times for God to take it away. And then he heard the voice of the infinite. It said, "My grace is sufficient for thee. My strength is made perfect in weakness." And so right here, my strength is made perfect in weakness. It's words I need to live by. I have had so many times where I do not have the answers, I don't have it figured out, but there is a higher creative power, a force for good that lives in me that wants to use me. And sometimes I have to not get what I want so it can have its way. Sometimes I describe the first few years as senior minister here as getting my ego put through the meat grinder. Is that an image for you? But really, I had to get broken down enough that Spirit could use me more freely, a little differently. I know some of you are hurting right now because of the election results, because of divorce, because of kids that aren't acting right, because of illness. I know some of you are hurting right now, and some of you feel lost. This is by David Wagner. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger. If you're willing to surrender what you wanted, Mick Jagger told us long ago, you might not always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, if you keep showing up, if you tell the truth, if you become willing and available for life to use you, yes, even in this mess, you just might find you get what you need. And not just for you, but for us all. I think we should pray. Here is a powerful stranger. This was not on our vision boards. This is not where we thought we would be, but we are here. And so we stand here in this moment, remembering that despite the brokenness of the circumstances and even the brokenheartedness that we experience, that this creative, generative force called life itself, called Spirit, called love, is here right where we are. And so we speak healing today. We speak transformation. And we speak surrender. We're willing to set aside anything that would stand in the way of the greater good that wants to flow through me now. And so without having to tell the universe the shape or the form, we trust the process. We trust this life force that knows what it's doing. And we allow ourselves to be its instruments, to be its voices, to be the hands that hold others, to be the feet that walk the path, knowing that right where we are is that Christ Spirit that says, peace, be still, and all that we need will come to us. And not only are we healed in this journey, but we become a healing force on this planet and for humanity. So God, we say thank you for all of it. We find our gratitude in the midst of every broken dream, and we say yes. And we trust the transformation is already happening. We let it be. And so it is. Amen. A bit of a downer today, it feels like, but I feel like sometimes we need to talk about the hard times. Come back next week. Oh, we're doing that again next week. Come back in 2 weeks. We're in this journey together, and it makes a big difference to have like-minded souls to walk with. If you're new here, I promise we will celebrate you and all the good times as well as we comfort you in the difficulty. Wherever you are welcome here. And if nobody has told you today that they love you, I love you. God bless you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.